Okay, can you hear us now?
Yes.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Okay, thank you. And we have Jacob Ellington in the room and also Camille Flood, Commissioner Slotnick, Maddie Scott, and myself, Cheryl Hartman.
Good job.
Nice job.
Way to go, Cheryl.
Folks online were unable to hear us. We just completed our roll call, so you did not miss anything. Is there any public comment on items not on today's agenda, either from folks in the room here or online? Irene. You're going to have to unmute yourself, Irene, if you want to speak. Okay, it was a false alarm. Any public comment on items not on today's agenda? Okay, seeing none, we will roll into the consent agenda. We have one item on the consent agenda, which hardly makes it a consent agenda. It is related to a PSA with Aragon Asphalt and Emulsions for a sum of not to exceed $145,000 for FY25 asphalt emulsion for chip seal projects. Any questions on that?
I would move we get this done.
Let's do it.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on this item? Any public comment on this item?
Can be carbon reinforced emulsion.
Yeah, after we learned yesterday.
Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All right, we have a small handful of action items today, beginning with a request. We love bylaws. do we
Yes.
not? Do we not? This is a request to approve amendments to the Missoula County Election Advisory Committee bylaws. Bradley.
Okay, I have attempted to share it on the screen.
There you go.
Perfect. So before you today, we presented a slate of bylaw changes. We had two different changes that we wanted to present as one slate of changes. There are two separate changes, and the first one dealt with the student member of the Election Advisory Committee. With the student member of the Election Advisory Committee, we were looking at a couple of updates, and the two specific updates were the time frame that the student member would start. Most boards have new positions take place in February or in June. For students attending the University of Montana, those are not the best times to really recruit a new person to join. So we were hoping that we would be able to adjust the term, and it would begin on September 1st and end on August 31st. This would allow people the time to get to the university, get signed up in classes, and then that term would better match a school year. So it'd be a different term schedule for the student member. The other thing we saw with the student member was that they would be a senior and they would graduate. And so it's a 3-year term, but we would be replacing this regularly because of people going on to other positions, graduating from the university. So as we went through this, we were looking first at the start times, but then also specifically looking at having them be attending on a half-time basis when they apply for the position. The big reason that when the student member was added, and I think this was in 2020 or 2018, was to be able to have a better connection with some of the resources at the university. You don't necessarily lose that as soon as you graduate, so it could still be a great connection, a great way to access resources at the University of Montana. And that bylaw change was actually brought up during the January meeting, presented, and we went through and we had unanimous support on that change. Also included is a recent bylaw change from our last meeting in July, which adjusts the makeup of the positions. Our Election Advisory Committee had been consistent of members appointed by the commission, as well as members directly from the central committees. We had a resolution brought forward by one of our members who is here today. We've got quite a few of our members here today to talk about this, which would remove the central committee appointed positions and turn them to at-large positions. As we go through, that would basically take these central committee appointed members from the bylaws, transition them to a at-large appointed member. We would encourage the commission to continue forward with those already in a term. And then the central committee alternates would become at-large alternates so that they could fill in for other groups. With us today, we have quite a few members of the EAC, but I wanted to be mindful of everybody's time. So go through this pretty quickly and allow Rebecca Dawson, who presented this resolution, to just really quickly speak on this. In the July meeting, this did pass. It was 4 votes for this resolution, 2 votes against, and 1 person abstaining. So we had some great discussion. We want to revisit that very briefly so everybody's up to speed, but not take up too much of your time.
Let us do that now.
Can I
Yes.
say something on this? Because I had the privilege of being at this meeting and I was really impressed with the thoughtful, thorough discussion around this that you all had. And if I remember right, I encouraged you to come because just on its face, the passing of these bylaws could look like some partisan attempt to shift things. And that wasn't at all what I heard in this discussion. So I'm really glad that you could.
Yeah, fill us in.
So-
Does anyone?
My name is Rebecca Dawson. I am actually the Republican Central Committee member, which makes it odd for me to be the one that brought this up. But the idea behind this was the elections office is nonpartisan. It has to be nonpartisan. It's very good at portraying to the community that we are nonpartisan and that they are here to serve the entire community. By having specific partisan positions on the Elections Advisory Committee, it kind of flies in the face of that. It goes against it by designating partisan positions. The other issue, we may not now in Missoula County have active central committees for the other minor parties, but at some point we could. At that point, if we're going to have partisan positions for one, we have to have partisan positions for all. So then we come to you and ask to add membership if those committees form and choose to want to participate. Bradley is very good at reaching out to all of the central committee chairmen, whether they are active or not. And so the central committees are very much aware of what happens at EAC. They're included on all of our communications. So in the interest of being completely nonpartisan, I think it is proper to remove any partisan positions.
Thoughts from EAC members?
I do.
Yeah.
First, I'm an English major, so I want to correct a minor semantic detail. The central committees only suggest a nominee. You guys have to appoint us. So the central committees don't appoint anybody. They just say, here's our suggestion. And
Right.
you guys appoint us. My name's Todd Mowbray. I am the Democrat, Missoula Democrat Central Committee representative. And we had a discussion of this at the E-Board. And so I'm here to represent not only the collective opinion of the Democrats E-Board, but my own strongly held opinion as a 6-year or 7-year, I don't remember where I'm at, of the EAC. So we're going to ask that you leave the bylaws as currently constituted. Probably the most reductive phrase that expresses our reaction to the bylaw changes is, if it's not broken, don't fix it. And in my 6 or 7 years, whatever it is, on the board, there has never, to my knowledge, been an intractable problem that arose because the central committees were explicitly represented. There are, of course, more nuanced reasons behind, if it's not broken, don't fix it. But first, I did want to thank Rebecca for initiating this conversation. I appreciate her motives. And in a perfect world, a nonpartisan board might be an improvement. But we're not dealing with theory. We are at a specific point in time with a specific set of national and statewide political circumstances. So politically, it's not a perfect world. So, of course, all election officials must behave in a nonpartisan fashion, and all elections must be conducted in an identically nonpartisan manner. But the reality is that in the broad sense, elections are the ultimate expression of partisanship. Research shows that the vast majority of voters vote based on party ID or leaning. We live in a partisan age. And all of us in the room are acutely aware of the riptides of doubt and uncertainty swirling throughout the electorate about the integrity of the elections. Voters of all political persuasions have their concerns about how elections are conducted, how they're verified, and how the ballots are counted. The bylaws, as currently written and originally conceived, guarantee an explicit and transparent participatory role for any duly constituted party with a central committee. In other words, all viewpoints. This ensures that as we provide input to and work with the Missoula County Elections Office, we're not only explicitly soliciting suggestions and insights from the important segments of the political spectrum, we're also creating ambassadors that can carry the message of integrity back to those central committees. And they can say, we've had a hand in this. These are integral elections. The bylaws also provide for input from other stakeholders. We explicitly and transparently solicit participation and provide seats for the ADA population, the student population, and the populace at large. The full spectrum of politics in Missoula County. So it does not make sense to retain specificity of representation for some segments and then remove it for others. In short, given the hyper-partisanship in the air, the concerns about fairness of elections and the misinformation surging through the internet, we're convinced that it will not enhance the public's confidence in Missoula's elections to, in effect, tell the parties that we will not guarantee that your viewpoint will be represented. Now is not the time to remove that guarantee of representation for the political parties. And that is the consensus opinion of our e-board and my own as well.
Todd, a quick question for you. So it doesn't seem to be, it doesn't strike me as an equivalency to say that we've got a position for ADA or a student. You could be disabled and be Republican or Democrat. You could be a student. You could be a Republican or a Democrat. Thoughts?
No, that's absolutely correct. It is an analog in a somewhat distant sense in that there's specific reach out to specific segments of the population. But yeah, you're right. That could be either part.
Could you remind us of the vote that
Yeah.
how did the numbers come down on the vote when the EAC took this up?
So at the EAC meeting, when we approached this, we had 4 votes, which were approving of the resolution, 2 votes against, and 1 abstaining. And so we had very similar discussion at our EAC meeting, hearing very similar points. And the votes were for the amendment, 2 against, and 1 abstaining.
Right. Just really appreciate what you said, and you said it very well. Thank you for coming in. And I really appreciate how you highlighted the deep partisan nature of this moment. There are Republican trucks and Democrat trucks, like things that it's crazy.
Yeah, another.
And just let me finish.
Yeah.
And I also really appreciate how you pointed out elections cannot be partisan. The mechanics of elections, how we run them, the architecture, how they're designed, absolutely cannot be partisan. They are technical exercises. It has nothing to do with ideology. So I really appreciate the removal of partisanship from the mechanics of elections. And let's look at this as an exercise in engineering and logistics and make sure everything is done to perfection. It has nothing to do with ideology. So personally, I appreciate what you said. I also appreciate what you said.
Rebecca?
I wanted to address representation, people here, they're having their voices heard, their point of views heard, and dissemination of information. Bradley does share our meeting minutes with each central committee chairman. So that chairman has the opportunity to share exactly verbatim what happens in the elections advisory meetings. Our meetings are open to the public for whether they would like to attend in person or virtually, and everyone is welcome to comment. So for those members of our community that want to be involved in the process, they have ample opportunity to make their individual voices heard or a collective voice if they belong to any specific group, just as a member of our public.
Thanks. Other folks not commented either on the EAC or anyone else for that matter? Anyone online? Are there more amendments to go through, or is it just?
So that is the bulk of the amendments. It was really looking at 2 separate ones so that if there was a decision, you could approach them all as a slate but you could approve the student, the central committee separately. And so for this, that's all of the amendments that we have for today, for the foreseeable future. And we think that in general, there's been some great discussion at the EAC about this. And we really wanted to be cognizant of time with not making one small change, coming back for another small change, but we've really reviewed these pretty well.
I'm on the EACA. I do want to say.
Sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay. My name is Amber and I just, yeah, there was a lot of really great discussion about this already. And so I just wanted to just reiterate again, like, we're going to say that these offices are also held. I ran for city council in 2019 as a Democrat, but did not win their endorsement. They went with the incumbent and instead I was endorsed by the Republicans. And I just feel like because that office is nonpartisan or supposed to be, I've just had that experience of like, is it really partisan? Is it not? Are we just saying it is? And if we truly believe that, I feel like the EAC and its purpose should be nonpartisan and that should reflect in all of the positions that we appoint, that the three of you appoint for our city.
I'm ready to make a motion, but if you want to comment, please.
Go ahead.
I would move that we pass these amendments to the bylaws.
Second.
Okay, further discussion.
Only last thing to say, the discussion you guys had at the AC was really impressive, thoughtful. Everybody treats each other so well. It was really a model of how a board should operate, and I commend you for that.
Love to echo that. It's fantastic.
Yeah, really, really well done.
Other public comment on the motion to approve the amendments as presented? I guess I would add that I am, thanks, Todd, for your input. Thank you, Rebecca, and everyone else from the EAC who's joined us today. Just as a reminder, this is an advisory committee, and I think that's an important thing to bear in mind. And for me, this is absolutely a nonpartisan entity and should be. Why we have an election administrator that is nonpartisan and
Elected.
and non-elected. And I would certainly envision this and have in the past. I served on this committee years ago. I envision this as a committee that goes about its work in a nonpartisan fashion and provides technical advice to the election administrator and the Board of County Commissioners. And I'm leaning towards adopting these amendments. That was a long way around to get to that point. And as everyone should know, anything that we do can be undone. So if the apocalypse ensues as a result of what we do today, we can probably address that in the future. So
I was listening to Bradley. I'm like, what if students don't do this because September 1st is too soon and we should have done it September 15th? Like, oh, well, then next year we'll change. That's what we will adjust.
all right, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye. Thank you all.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you all. Thank you, Bradley.
I think quite a few of us from the EAC are going to step out now, if that's okay.
The rest of this is going to be riveting.
Great.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
See you later. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Okay, we will move on in the agenda. This next one, who is presenting this? And Chris out there.
I am out here.
Okay.
Chris has accused me of vacationing badly. Is he doing the same thing?
Yeah.
Being bad at
He's
vacation.
taking one for the team, one-time expenditures.
Yeah.
So,
Chris, nice to hear your voice, Chris, and look forward to seeing you in person.
Chris, fill
Thanks.
us
I
in.
will be back in the office tomorrow. So commissioners, as we go through the FY25 budget process, we're at the point now where we are asking you to make a few decisions. On Thursday, you'll look at ongoing requests. But today, what we're asking you to do is adopt as a slate all of the one-time expenses. All of those, again, do not have an ongoing property tax impact. They are funded from either savings that the county has intentionally put aside, grant funds, or other means where we're using cash that the county has on hand to fund those. So we're asking you to adopt those as just a group so that we can get those into the budget for the final budget presentation, which will be September 5th.
Chris, any questions?
No.
No, we've.
Oh, sorry, Griffin.
You should have questions. Good job.
Thanks. I was looking at the attached file and I noticed there were some highlighted ones. Is there any explanation for why they were highlighted?
Chris, highlighting.
Griffin, they are not. That was just a tracking system for me as we were making sure we got them all in there. So no special reason behind the coding other than I needed a way to make sure that I got them all. And so as we were going through moving things between spreadsheets, some of them were pre-highlighted and I didn't remove the formatting.
Okay.
Want to reiterate, these are items that have no new ongoing property tax impact.
You know, a motion.
I make a motion to approve the one-time expenditures.
Second that.
Any further discussion on the motion or public comment? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Chris, the next one is yours also. This is a request to approve a one-time budget enhancement to fund the Johnson Street Shelter for FY25, contingent on a tax increment finance remittance from the city in the amount of at least $909,863.
So commissioners, we were asked to participate in the funding of Johnson Street again this year. As folks might recall, that originally started as the emergency winter shelter, but has grown to operate year round over on city land off of Johnson Street. And so there is not a way for the county to contribute this year outside of the tax increment finance remittance that the city is considering. So we're just asking that you approve this request as a one-time request contingent on that. Unfortunately, we do not have cash available or ARPA funds remaining that could fund that.
Just to be clear, this is also no tax increase. This is simply taking money that would otherwise be considered increment for an urban renewal district that the city would be releasing that we could use for this purpose.
Commissioner Strohmeyer, that's a good point. And the other piece I would add is that, again, those taxes are collected inside the city. So staff felt like this was an appropriate mechanism since, again, it's largely funding assistance with a primarily city service.
Jacob and I had a spirited discussion about TIFs yesterday, which are super weedy and hard to understand if you haven't been steeped in it. I'm sure Griffin is steeped in it after being around for a while. But I want to reiterate what Chris is saying. This is money paid by people who live in the district. Instead of that money going to cover all of everything in the city and the county, because these folks are in the city, the difference between, let's say, the year 2020 and year 2021 or 21 and 22, that difference goes into a fund to cover the costs of specific projects within that district. The city's decided to take some money out of that pool, and instead of funding a specific project, they're actually going to take it out and use it in a different way. Now, when they take that money out, they have to redistribute money that would have gone to the other taxing jurisdictions. So that means the county, the school districts, fire districts, anything else, any other taxing jurisdiction that would have been receiving money from that entity. It's called a remittance. So this is not money that the folks in Cedar Lake would be paying, or the folks in Condon would be paying, or Frenchtown, or East Missoula, or even Target Range. This is very specific to this district. So that's why I feel good about it.
That was a spirited.
Yes. It's just because Jacob and I had such a fun time chatting tips yesterday.
Any other questions about this? Missoula Current, look at that.
All right.
Hey, good morning, guys. I had two very quick questions. One,
Yes.
The city levied 2 emergency mills last night to help fund its share of the shelter. Does the county have that same ability?
Chris.
Hi, Martin. So the short answer is statutorily, yes, we do. The challenge is, again, the city's mills have to be levied inside the city limits only. The county's mills are levied outside the city limits. And because this particular service is primarily focused into the city, it would be very difficult to make the nexus. Could we? Possibly is the answer.
Okay, second quick question. The city has asked MRA to remit this funding in each of the past several years. Do you remember off the top of your head what the county used its remittance for last year and the year before?
Last year was the Johnson Street shelter. Again, Martin, I'm not sure if there was a remittance the year before. If there was, I apologize. I don't remember off the top of my
I
head.
think last year was the first year and it was for Johnson Street.
Okay,
And
thanks.
just to clarify the answer to the first question, Martin, the county's mills are levied inside the city's limits and outside the city limits, not just outside the city limits.
Correct. Thanks a lot.
Okay, just making that clear. Thanks.
Other questions?
Oh,
or
sorry,
comments?
and just one last clarification: the disaster mills are outside the city limits only.
Oh, thank you.
And
Learned something new every day.
the bulk of the cost to this disaster occurred inside the city,
Correct.
not out and not in the county.
Are you talking windstorm?
Yes,
Oh,
I did- yes,
okay,
the
so
Yeah.
different than
Yeah.
Johnson Street. Okay.
Yep.
Yes.
Given that if
Unless there's lots of trees at Johnson
Yeah.
Street that came down,
the
so.
costs incurred via the windstorm are inside the city, it makes a lot of sense for the city to levy their emergency mills, but we didn't incur similar costs outside of the cities. Doesn't make so much sense to use our emergency mills.
Yes. Other questions?
Good question though, Martin.
Allison, you look troubled.
Yeah, I just stating the windstorm disaster emergency.
I think there is that.
Let's not conflate the two at
Yeah.
all. So these are two separate things. There's a tip remittance over here. And then over here, we have emergency mills due to the windstorm. The city is levying emergency mills due to the windstorm. We're not. because-
Yeah,
I
Martin
believe-
is talking about the to fund the shelter. They're levying
I thought they're-
emergency mills based on the emergency.
Yeah.
That's-
Totally sorry. I also heard they were doing 2 emergency mills for the storm, but
Yeah, I mean, those are questions that they'll need
I'm
to
not
clarify,
sure.
but I.
I'm sorry. Totally sorry. I had heard that was going to happen, but take it all back.
They might have been considering it. I don't know, but
So the,
Thanks, Allison.
yeah, we are not levying any emergency mills for Johnson Street and if that were contemplated and would be legal to do, the nexus would be very tenuous for something within the city.
We don't know anything about the storm emergency mills. That's where we're going to.
I heard talk, but I guess we're not.
You're not going,
Thanks, Allison. Yes.
do not go there. Martin, anything else?
No, that's all. Thank you. Appreciate it.
More than enough. Okay. Any other questions or public comment on this or a motion?
Go ahead.
I move we request the board approve a one-time budget enhancement to fund Johnson Street out of the tip remittance.
Second,
Further discussion. And this is contingent on,
contingent, right?
on the
The
tip
city,
remittance. And Chris, what are we looking at like in terms of next steps here so that it would not only be contingent, but a reality?
Oh, I'm sorry, commissioners. I had a little internet issue there. I heard, what are we looking at?
Oh, yeah. So what's the path forward on this after we approve this item today? What does the city need to do next so that this is, so the contingency is actually realized?
Yeah, so the city adopted their budget Monday night, so we will be in contact with the city this week to see if that happens. And then once that is approved by MRA, then the contingency would drop off from this.
Any further discussion on this? Okay, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that ends all
Thank
of
you.
all of our action items. Does anyone have a wildfire update?
do not.
We need to drop this off the agenda. Okay.
Oh, careful.
Maybe
Right,
let's
jinx
get
ourselves.
into September. maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, it's still pretty hot out there.
Well,
All
like.
right, that concludes all of our business. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
I think I screwed up in there because we had talked